All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for episode number 20 of On the Move. This week, we join you from Harvest, Alabama. I'm here with Joe. We're at the Tennessee Valley Polo Club. Is it Polo Cross Club or just Polo Club?
Polocrosse Club. Yep.
Polo Cross Club. And
GVPC.
yeah, so it's been a cool weekend for me. It's something Joe's been getting into for a little while, and this is the first time I've come to an event like this. So pretty stoked to be here, having a lot of fun, and we managed to round up a couple of people, and we had Rahul, Desai, and Houston Hutcherson on the podcast with us. A couple of top hands, I guess.
Yeah.
In my world, I'd call them that, but
Yeah.
in polocrosse, who are they?
Yeah. So both of them, from everything I can tell, very good players. I know Raul, he's been on a couple World Cup teams, and Houston has also played internationally and consistently plays A grade throughout the country. So both of them, you could say, are very accomplished in their own right. And both of them right now, I think, are on the list for the next World Cup team to represent the United States in 2024 for the next Polocrosse World Cup. But yeah, man, they were really fun to talk to. It was a really cool conversation because, like you said, I just kind of recently got into this, but all in all, it's still kind of an alien world to me too, but gosh, it's hard to say enough nice things about the people you meet doing this stuff. Um, Especially Raul, he's been really helpful for me, kind of getting us started. So yeah, it's been really fun and kind of interesting to get a different perspective on their relationship with horses and what they're doing to try to get their horses prepared and get themselves prepared to be good at kind of this mountain they're trying to climb.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting to me to find out more about this little community because there's a pretty good element of helping each other out and making new friends, and seems like a nice close knit community of people. And you get around different kind of horse people that are kind of pursuing different aspects, and then these guys talking to them, they're pursuing this sport like very very singularly to that. So but even in that, we talk to them, there's stuff they struggle with the same as anybody else with trying to get a horse better at a particular job. So therefore you have to, even if you didn't get into it to become a horseman, you start to find that in order to get the sport done that you want to participate in and play well at, you have to learn some of the skills that a horseman studies to be able to help your horse be in the right place at the right time and be with you to perform at a high enough level.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were just in there having dinner, and I was talking to this guy, Robbie Shuttles, who maybe we'll have on sometimes, and he's going to be the coach of the U.S. team in this upcoming World Cup here in a couple years. And that was kind of the main thing he wanted to talk about with me, was how the right horse can really send a player over the top. Like it is a ball and racket sport, but at the end of the day, it's a horse sport. And if you're not properly mounted and you don't have the right feel with that animal, you're not going to be very effective. And I mean, we've kind of learned that just playing around today, doing our kind of little deal where it's not too serious and we're just kind of playing in like the fun league. But yeah, it's it's definitely interesting and always fun to just find new jobs for your horse to do, man.
Yeah, it was pretty eye opening to me
Good.
once you get in there, right?
Yeah.
And things are fast. We talk about that sometimes when you do anything new, especially with a horse where it requires some skill and some timing, moving parts, other people are involved, other horses, and it can seem really fast. And so to try to take that and just slow it down a little bit to where you can think in between there, or maybe learn not whatever it is that you learn to do so that time starts to slow a little bit.
Yeah.
And you don't just react to everything around you. You start to make some decisions ahead of time
Yeah.
before what happens.
You start to get that zen
A little bit.
almost.
Yeah, in the
where
midst of that fury, you can kind of see what you need to do at the right time.
find the calm in the battle, so
Yeah.
to speak. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, like we talk about all the time, you can ride by yourself in the arena all day long and get your horse feeling really soft and really good. But until you go out and really try to get something done, in this case, it's under quite a bit of pressure. Um, it's a pretty honest litmus test, for what you have going on with your horse. And I mean, shoot, there were times today where I was like, man, this is really not as good as I thought it was,
Yeah.
but you get the job done and it's all good.
Well, it was certainly a break in the routine for me to come out here
Yeah.
and ride with you guys. So, well, I think all of you guys will enjoy this episode quite a bit, and we had a real good time. So,
Yeah.
buckle up. Here we go. Enjoy the episode.
But yeah, so this was his first tournament. I guess it's my fourth one now. So.
All right.
But it was fun.
I'm back. Back from the phone. We don't typically take phone calls
Or
on a podcast.
professional setting.
We do a few. Depends
Yeah.
on who it is.
Yeah.
We take phone calls from the haters.
Yeah.
We like to do that. We've taken a few.
Yeah.
Wow.
We put them right on.
I've got a lot of haters, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phone's about to start blowing up.
Oh yeah. So let's clear some stuff. So Ben and I already know Rahul. I know Rahul pretty well, and I've met you and chatted a little bit with you, Houston. But so Rahul, you've been playing polocrosse for like a long
Oh, yeah.
time, but there's a break in the middle.
Yeah, so started as a young kid in Zimbabwe. Played for, I don't know, several years, and then moved to the States because of political situations back home. Didn't even know polocrosse existed here. And then I was at Clemson in my undergrad, and one of my buddies, he was like, "Oh yeah, I saw something on the news about polocrosse," and I was like, "No ways, it wasn't polocrosse, it was polo."
Yeah.
You didn't see polocrosse, and
No worries.
he said, "No, it's polocrosse. Go look it up." So sure enough, I Googled it, and the closest club was Orange County, which is no longer playing, and they were about almost 4 to 5 hours from Clemson. So that was 2006 East Zone Championships, I think. So I would study all night, get up at like 2, drive 6 hours to play, and then play in that tournament. And then ever since then, 2007, end of 2006, beginning of 2007, got hooked back and had to take another break when I went to graduate school. But since then I've been back at it and full steam ahead.
Is that a fairly common sport in Zimbabwe?
It used to be really big there. So Zimbabwe used to be by far the best in the world back in the day. Before they had an official World Cup, they had kind of like a intro kind of test match, I guess, World Cup. I forget what they called it, and Zimbabwe won hands down. This was back when they had 5, 6, 700 players, and when I was growing up there, going to a tournament, you'd have easy 300-400 players at a tournament. Now, because of the political situation, everyone's left. It's pretty small, so they're kind of in the rebuilding stage, trying to get it growing again.
And like at that time, they were a lot closer together than like the United States as far as going to a tournament.
Oh yeah. You don't have that's by far the biggest disadvantage the U.S. has compared to any other country. Is we've got very talented players here, even on the World Cup team and juniors and stuff. But you compare us to other countries that are traveling 2 hours to play in a tournament, and they get to play not only with each other but against the top competition week in and week out. Whereas for us, I get to play Houston, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a year, maybe max.
Yeah.
And when do we ever get to play together?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that makes
Never.
sense.
Yeah.
So you get to an international stage of the World Cup, and you might have played with your team 3, 4 times just because of the distances. I mean, you're driving. It's a 2-day trip for me to get to Texas.
Yeah.
Not to mention time off work and getting horses there and letting them, have some downtime before you play. So it's just a very different dynamic here, that we have to face, and obstacles that we have. But I mean, we can bitch and moan about it all we want. It's not going to change anything. We just have to figure out how we work around it and get better.
So I'm totally new to this sport, knowing anything about it. So this World Cup, are you guys picked from around the country or from different places? You don't play necessarily together, but then you get drawn in for this specific team to play the World Cup, or how does that work?
Yeah, so typically you start out by, like, you express that, hey, I'm interested in being selected for the team, and then there's a coach and manager and World Cup chairperson that are appointed, and then they decide who should be on the long list, I guess is what it's traditionally called. And I think it typically is around this 12 to 16 person mark, roughly, maybe. And then leading up to a World Cup, which is typically every 4 years, they have kind of intervals. So by X date, we'll have a long list of 10. And then as we get closer to the time, the coaches will watch players play at a tournament around the country and say, okay, these players need to be cut. Now our list now gets trimmed to 8, and so forth until you get to your final 4. So yeah, we don't get to play together very often, and it would actually be a detriment to us to do that here, because if the top 4 players play together, you wouldn't have much of competition, to play against, and you wouldn't be necessarily getting better. Yeah, you guys know you don't learn anything by winning. You can win all the games you want.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all fun and joy when you're winning and everyone's having a good time, but the big picture doesn't really help you much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you seek to put yourself in a comfortable situation, and even for me, like I'm in a little different line of riding horses, but even coming here this weekend, this morning, I mean, we got our butt kicked pretty much. And
Well,
what was
I
that
mean,
beat?
we
Yeah,
were-
but I mean, we lost.
We were
I'd
winning
call
with
it you
2
got your
minutes
butt
left.
kicked.
We didn't get
To
hosed.
me, unless you won by a good measure,
Yeah.
you lost.
But we
but
did
it felt
lose.
good,
We did
right?
lose. We're not going
And
to lose
so-
tonight. So it'll be
Depending on
That's
where
right.
I go with polocrosse, it is a whole angle. It's
Oh,
something
you're
I
going to be in
got
it.
kicked
Yeah.
at, right?
Right.
And so it's great. It's
Yeah.
something else to be like,
Yeah, if you would have won, just
there's a lot of
outright
improvement
cleaned
in
up
there
all
somewhere.
your games, you'd have been like, this is dumb.
Yeah, packed up
Exactly.
and gone on to something else.
There'd be
Easy
nothing
game,
to
these guys
chase.
are idiots.
We'll rope you in after you win tonight, and then you get to party with us. You'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Hey,
this
nothing
is where I
against
need to
the
be."
folks we played against, right? But we just played at that level. So to think of playing all the way up to the level you guys play at, there's a little mountain here
Oh, yeah.
for sure. You could
yeah.
hang out climbing on for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get too much farther along, what about you, Houston? Because you're from Texas,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Originally from Texas?
Yeah, born
Okay,
and raised.
cool.
I started playing at first term was at 7. It wasn't even
Oh,
a term, it
wow.
was just a play day.
Mhm.
My mom and dad started playing when I was born. They were playing before I was born. My mom met Renee. I don't know if you ever met Renee Thompson here this weekend, but
Not
they were
yet.
flight attendants together and both had a common interest in horse. My mom had a reining background, more so is kind of what she did. It was bigger back then in the 90s. It was really big back then in the 90s, at least in Texas.
Mhm.
And so she had that reining background, and she was in high school, she was the 16-year-old horse girl or whatever. But then met Renee, and Renee was like, yeah, we're starting to do this polocrosse thing over in Copeland, which is 30 minutes from where I grew up. And so they started doing that. And then I actually have a picture of me at a polocrosse tournament in a matching, little baby bib to onesie, matching my parents' uniform that. I was born and went to a tournament, Megan's kid or somebody, this weekend. But then, yeah, so first tournament 7, and then it was a play day. And then, yeah, just been obsessed since, got, it was pretty, it was decent, growing up, wasn't the top, youth player, by any means. And then high school started to get, more coordination, I was lifting weights and stuff, doing athletics, playing other sports. And, that's really when I fell in love with the game and was dude, this is sick, doing stuff that's you're whoa, damn, surprising myself, and yeah, I got really big into it there, like post into high school and like first couple years of college. Tried out for the 2015 World Cup, didn't make it. Had like a little hiatus there for a little bit, and then 20. I played like one tournament in 2017, and then just like as of 2020 when COVID hit, I had like a bunch of free time because everything was closed down. I was like, man, I want to, I've all like even that 5 years that I wasn't playing, like always was thinking about it. Like I would show up to tournaments even if I wasn't playing. Like watch
Show up with
them.
with
Yeah,
White
just
Claw.
yeah, well, White Claw, there for the party, but really the polocrosse. But then yeah, started playing again with when COVID started because everyone was so cooped up, so polocrosse tournaments were kind of, probably breaking some rules at the time, but got back into it and yeah, put my name for the World Cup team. Some of my best friends, like Braxton and Rahul and all these guys, like some of my best friends, and so it's it's really hanging out. I love that, and then just the competitiveness is sick, and then so yeah, just trying to make this World Cup team and
Yeah.
get after it.
And the next World Cup will be 2024.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was
supposed to be
postponed.
23, and
Right.
then
And got
because of
pushed back
COVID,
a year
yeah.
for
Yeah.
COVID. Got it.
So when are tryouts for that?
It's been ongoing for like the past year now. So like Raul was saying, they like pretty much anybody as long as you're like a youth player that's developing or like at a certain rating is typically how they do it. Like you have to be X rating to put your name in or
Name.
something, and they'll have like a long list, and then the coaches or the committee will get eyes on all those players that have put their names in, and then short it down to 16 men, 16 women, or 20 men, 20 women, whatever, and then so they can focus a little more and kind of develop some of the younger players that with promise, and then other players that might be playing well at the time or whatever, and then they shortened it to 8 guys, 8 girls back in
Couple months back.
yeah, like
Yeah.
maybe 6 months or so ago, or 8. Maybe I guess it was like right after national, so maybe a year ago now, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably
something
right.
like that. And so now it's top 8 men, top 8 women, and so we can really like focus down and like get tournaments where we play with
At
our
least
our
one
other
other
potential
person, yeah.
teammates. Yeah, exactly. And then yeah, just really focus and develop that team that we've kind of decided these are going to be the best players for the next couple of years.
Makes
And then
sense.
by
Yeah.
next spring, I think
Yeah, they'll
the
pick.
final team, final 4 and 4 women, 4 women, 4 men will be selected.
Yeah.
And then from there on out, it's game day, game time.
Yeah. And I know, Raul, you've told me in the past a big part of kind of pursuing being a part of a World Cup team is getting international experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
So-
especially for us, for
Yeah.
those reasons I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
could you talk about if someone were like, if an American, for example, wanted to get international experience because they're trying to make a World Cup team, like where should they go? What should they, should they be trying to get around all that stuff?
You mean like for a lower level player that's has aspirations to make that?
Well, no. Like we're talking about with
Just
if you've
just
got
international experience in general. You're
yeah,
saying?
exactly.
So
for people who
like-
might not understand like where in the world polocrosse is and
like
and
the
who
best
kind of the
the
movers
best
and shakers
place
are.
for sure, just because of the sheer volume of polocrosse they have, is Australia. They have the most players by thousands,
Tons.
and there's tons of families there. Like the first time, like I went to Australia, and like that's something that the US has kind of struggled with is the doing these like development teams. Like we haven't put many of them out in the past, I don't know, 4 or 5
time.
years. Yeah, like
More than that, probably,
maybe
yeah.
more than that. But a lot of countries are really big on these development teams and sending like under 6 teams, under 14 teams, under 21 teams, and sending them, to Africa or England or wherever, and just having a test match against their youth, and but like something I did was I found a host family over there, and there's tons of people like polocrosse community. I mean, as I don't know, this is your first weekend, but like everyone knows everyone, and it's really like a big family, and it extends all across the globe because everyone in polocrosse kind of has that same mentality, like family sport, take after your own. Obviously, there's some tensions and whatever on the field and whatnot, but like after the game, buddies again. You'll have a beer with the guy, whatever.
Yeah.
And so there's tons of families like willing to do, exchanges like, you come over here and then maybe my kid or something can come stay with y'all and play with your club or, anything like that. And even if it was a one-way deal, like there's so many families over there and all over the world that would host a player of any skill level just because they have someone that's at your skill level that they can pair you with. And you might learn something from them. They might learn something from you. Like I don't know, it's super cool and super available.
Yeah, I've
Yeah, I
started.
mean that's what I told you earlier a couple of weeks ago. Is it's because of what Houston just talked about. It's polocrosse is such a close knit family and around the world, not just in the country. That you literally pick you say, hey, I want to go to whatever Zimbabwe or South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. Pick up the phone, or if you don't know someone, you talk to one of us
Like
that knows
Rahul, and
somebody.
Rahul's like, yeah, I've got a guy.
Yep, we've got a
And then
connection there.
if that guy can't host you, he'll be like, oh, I know someone like, what's his skill level or whatever. He's like, oh, he should go stay with this family or something. Yeah.
But my friends are always shocked when I tell them like it's not a matter of begging someone to come over. It's hey, so and so, I'm free these dates. I can get there, and it's no questions asked. They say you just get here. Don't worry about the rest. We'll put you up. We'll feed you. We'll horse you. Take care of you. So,
That's awesome.
yeah,
It's-
and
it's
vice
super
versa.
cool.
We welcome people here all the time. It's a little harder here because we don't have as many tournaments as they do overseas. But if we can work out the timing, we always love having players over here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's not just World Cup. I mean,
Yeah, it's
we've
all
had-
levels. Yeah.
we've had players just recently up at the Heartland tournament. We had a B grade player that came from South Africa, played with the Carpenters. I think Sugarloaf a couple weeks ago. There was an elder or an adult, I think from Australia. I've never met him, but I'm not sure what division he played, but I know he wasn't in the top division. So any level.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah. One thing that really struck me at the first tournament at CPC, and that it kind of just like worked out that my plans that weekend had fallen out, and I texted you and you were like, perfect. I need an E grade person, like come and we'll just like fill this spot. And I was like, dude, yeah, I'll do whatever. I don't mind playing with whoever. But it was pretty unique because on that, like it's kind of a testament to the sport. I played, obviously there was me, I'm 27, and the other the other two people on my team were 57 and 7.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we were all playing like the same
And that's
sport
not
on
uncommon.
a team. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So
You'll
it's
have
like
3 generations of family playing in the same section. You'll have
exactly.
a grandchild, a parent, and a grandparent playing
Yeah.
all together.
And while part of me was like, okay, I got to get out of the juice box league like as quick as possible, but I was like, man, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty unique, especially for a horse sport.
Right.
Or any sport, yeah.
Yeah, any sport.
You
Yeah, I mean,
name-
like how many
name another
sports
sport.
are not,
Exclusive to-
a male league or a
Right.
female league? Like
Exactly.
you go out there and you're like, we're playing these 3 little girls, these 14-year-old girls, and they go out there and they
They whip
whoop
your
your
tail.
ass,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a very even playing field and very inclusive. So yeah, that's the joy of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the beauties of the sport.
Yeah, it's pretty unique. Well, like already, I ordered a helmet to play, and I wanted to get like a legit helmet. So
Yeah,
I got one
you
of
gotta
those
look
new
the part.
derby helmets.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't gonna get the cheap feed
Right.
store helmet.
Can't look out of place.
Yeah, and then they sent it up from Australia. It was a
Yeah.
small. I
Yeah.
ordered an
Ooh.
extra large.
Yeah.
So I emailed them, and I'm thinking this is a bummer.
Yeah.
It's shipping overseas and all that. And then they said contact our local lady, I think Susan Hatch.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And then next thing you know, she texts me and says, "Will you be at the match in Alabama this weekend?" And I texted Joan. I was like, "This is kind of a tight knit community, here."
Right.
Like the fact that this place that
Right.
sells gear for this contacts their American person, and then
Rep or-
she texts me and says, "Will you be there this weekend?"
Yeah.
Yep.
I was like, "Huh, that's
Yeah.
kind of neat."
There's only one this weekend, so.
Yeah. So there is only one tournament in the country this weekend?
Yeah,
It's here?
pretty
In the
much every
US.
weekend, yeah. Because I mean, like, for a good tournament, like we had nationals, which is like our biggest tournament of the year, and it was here. It's hosted here pretty much every year because it's central for every. The majority of the furthest west players will be is like Colorado, and then like a small group up in Montana.
You don't have very many Californians?
None.
Kind of rough for
Yeah,
them.
none. There used to be a group
There used
up
to
in
be
like Seattle or
Arizona,
Washington.
I
Yeah.
think, as well. But
Too rough for
Um,
them.
But yeah, but like, so like it's pretty central for everyone to get here. But like, I think we had at Nationals 160 or 50.
yeah, I mean, our numbers are definitely down from what they were pre-COVID and 10
Yeah,
years
so
from
like,
now. But
if there was multiple tournaments a weekend, like, and half went to each, it'd be like
you will
25,
have
25 or like
the
50,
odd year
50.
where you have 2 tournaments back on the same weekend in different zones. You would never have 2 tournaments in the same zone on the same weekend.
Right.
Whereas you talk of South Africa might do it every now and then, but probably the only other place that can do that is Australia, and Australia may have 3-4 in a weekend because they have 5,000 players. I mean,
Right.
So they don't struggle for numbers there.
Yeah.
So like you guys, like how many matches in a year do you play, and how much do you have to travel for all those?
So
Like what's the
so it's typically it's three
whole country?
Yeah, it's typically 3 or 4 games per tournament. And this year I've played 7 tournaments in the US, 5 in the spring and then 2 this fall, this one included. And yeah, I've been to Carolina, Minnesota, we had one in Texas, our home tournament or our regional tournament. There was Florida. I went to Florida, Georgia, or no, yeah, Georgia, and another one in Alabama, or I guess it might
Yeah,
even be
Mississippi.
Mississippi. Yeah. So that's 7 there, and then I actually went to Africa for a wedding and got to play in a tournament over there as well.
Nice.
But yeah, a lot of traveling. We're basically
it's a
like
ton of
truck
traveling,
drivers that
for
get to
sure.
like ride horses, you know.
We try to do as many as we can, especially with World Cup aspirations. Again, you have to be playing and competing against the best. And like I said earlier, in order for me to get the competition I need, I have to travel here. And I mean, we as much as we like to go to Texas, it's just really hard with 2 little kids and working in healthcare. Schedule's a bit challenging.
20-hour
but
drive,
Yeah.
you know.
Where
But
do
you have to
lay
travel.
over?
Here?
So again, speaking of polocrosse community, you just call up someone and say, "Hey, I'm heading to Texas." Stacy Upshaw, who lives in Mississippi, I think she lives in Mississippi, Alabama, somewhere in that area near Mobile. That's where we lay over typically, and she's very accommodating.
That makes
Come
sense.
up, pull in, put your horses up for the night, get
Yeah.
up early in the morning, and get the rest of it.
Like I went up to Montana. It's the only time I've driven up there, and that was 28 hours of driving. And we stopped at Susan Hatch's place.
Oh, did
on
you?
the way up there? Yeah,
So she's in Montana.
she's in just south of Denver, and so we stopped. We did. I think it was like 10 or 12 hours to her place. We went straight there, and then up the highway the next day. Like overnighted at her place, and then up the rest of the way the next day. Because over like we'll typically do like a 14 or 15 hours is about where like the max for like a 1 day push would be, and then anything over that, that's when you can split it like a 16 into 2/8, that's way better for the horses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it gets pretty hard on them. I think the way harder on them every hour. Like after
Oh
that,
yeah, I
after
saw
that 14.
some article from a endurance rider, and we have a good nutritionist that we work with who's an endurance rider, and I don't remember the exact stats, but it's something astounding where it's like every 3 or 4 hours that a horse is on a trailer is like the equivalent of them running like 30 or 35 miles or something.
Oh God.
And again, don't quote me on that, but it's
Yeah.
some
Yeah,
I've
it's a
heard
weird
about
number,
that.
yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
number.
It's tough on their joints and stuff too. Right?
And the electrolyte losses that you don't even think of, how
Yeah.
many liters of sweat they lose and stuff like that. And so,
Yeah.
you're talking hauling 20 hours to go play against these guys.
And then
who,
yeah, 48 hours and you're going back the other direction.
Right.
Again,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that, how like you'll put a day in between hauling and the tournament if it's
for
a
the
farther.
for the long
tournaments.
trips.
Yeah.
We make sure there's only a handful of them that we do it for, but like I told you, Florida, Grand Bay, Tennessee, Texas, those are about the only ones that we'll make sure that we get there at least by Thursday.
Yeah.
Texas maybe even potentially early. I mean,
Yeah.
work schedules,
Exactly.
depending
But that,
on
I
how
mean,
goes,
that
but-
makes sense, especially being, 2 A grade players like you and Sarah are,
right.
and kind of being the upper echelon of like what you have to demand from the
Well,
horses.
and it's also a testament to the sport. Like, unlike polo, you've got one horse for the weekend typically. So every now and then you might have a multi-horse tournament, or like for this weekend, you've got 4 horses per section. But you've got to take care of your horse and treat them like gold, and
Yeah.
bubble wrap them. And as you guys know, horses are a pain in the ass, and they're always going to surprise you with something.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk about the horses more. As far like, you guys probably both have kind of set playing strings right now, but if you were to go get like a new horse today to be your polocrosse horse for whatever your lifespan is, what would you look for in the horse, and like where would you try to go and find it?
I mean, for me, we're kind of lucky right now. We've got a really good string for Sarah and I. We've got a couple of stock horses, a couple of thoroughbreds. It's in this country, stock horses are hard to come by.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
Australian stock horse.
Australian stock
Yep.
horses, right? I prefer the crosses instead of a full stock horse, cross with half thoroughbred. That's a personal thing. I just feel like they've got a little more spunk to them, a little more go. You've got the brains of the stock horse and the kind of fuel tank of a thoroughbred in there. But your options are limited here. They are out there, but not a ton. Although
Yeah, when you say hard to come by, does that include importing one, or
well,
you
you
have
can
to find
import
something
one.
here?
Yeah, you can import one if you
Have you done
money.
that?
I have not. There have
Yeah.
been people that have. We're fortunate that we've got one gelding out of one of the I think actually the original Australian stock horse stallion that was imported here, Ballandown Zorro, and my best horse is out of him. And then we've got another one out of a stallion from Australia that was boarded in Canada for a while, and she's a very good mare as well. And then my 2 babies are out of Zorro as well. And then our others are thoroughbreds, 2 thoroughbreds and 1 quarter horse. But now, I mean, the easiest way is off the track thoroughbreds. That's the easiest. You do have the occasional quarter horse that'll make it if they've got the right body type and build, and can keep up with the fast thoroughbreds. But I mean, the most important thing is a brain, right? You've got to have one that's got a good brain and is willing and has a heart. I mean, if I can find one that has a brain and a heart and that willingness to try and pick up on things, I can work with that.
Yeah.
I might take a little bit extra time to get it going to where I want it to be, and it might be twice as long as I normally would take, but I'm willing to give that a gamble if it's got a good brain and got that heart. There's nothing more frustrating than being on a horse that doesn't want to try when you're out there playing against tough competition, especially because when you come to these big tournaments, you're playing people like Houston and whoever. The top players are going to be very well mounted, and
Yeah.
as much as the horse affects the outcome of a game, you've got to be well mounted and train your horses appropriately. But that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Houston?
So I've before 2020, all the horses were purchased by like my parents. Like most people that start off, like grow up riding horses.
Sure.
And so I didn't like. We always had like pretty good horse. My mom, having the reining background, like was pretty good at schooling younger horses, and she always leaned more towards quarter horses, like loved quarter horses, right? And we had the occasional thoroughbred that would come in and wasn't like just a blown mind like crazy thoroughbred, like off the track racehorse, and I got a really good horse when I was like right around that age when I was really getting passionate about it. I got still one of the best horses I've ever ridden. Thoroughbred, taller, but super athletic. And so like that's kind of like my biggest thing is like they're how much potential do they have? Like how much ability are they capable of is like kind of the first thing that I look at. Obviously like there's some confirmation things I look for, like straighter legs, stuff like that. But the 2 like top horses I have right now both came out of polo.
Okay.
And they're both like 10 and 13. And that's who I was playing today. One of them I've had for like 2 months, and this is his first weekend playing in like a legit tournament, and he's killing it. but he has that polo background. So he's played something similar where he's more used to like the longer runs and stuff like that. Whereas here, it's kind of like quicker sprints and then shut it down and everything. But they were both born and bred in Argentina by this polo guy that I got them from. And so I looked up what like an Argentine polo horse is, and it's basically exactly what an Australian stock horse is. It's their cow working horse that they've crossed with these athletic, smaller thoroughbreds to create a more athletic, better minded, get the agility from the cow horses, and then get that stamina and endurance and speed and stuff from the thoroughbreds. And so it's like kind of funny to me. It's like the same kind of breeding, and then it's also kind of like the appendix here, like it's the same thing. It's just like they have a name for it there,
Yeah.
But yeah, I try to like the one I'm riding today, like I mean, not that none of the ones I have right now are like the best trained. I'm not a horse trainer. I try to learn as much as I can and try to be trying to become that. But like, yeah, I got most of my stuff's off field. Like if I feel like I can get to where I need to be on the field, I like that horse. Like if he's getting me to the positions that I know where to be at all times, and if I have a horse that I can get me there, that's what I look for mostly. It's just like ability, and then I can kind of work and see if it's going to work out or not.
So basically, you at this point at your level of experience in the sport, you pretty well understand the job the horse needs to do.
Right.
It's it's more a matter of one fit, like from an athletic standpoint, can they do that job?
Right.
And then two, as you're bringing them along, like basically making that job more fluid.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
the one I'm on today, like super leapy. I fell off yesterday. I don't know. Did y'all see that?
Case of beer.
I fell off like yesterday in our night game.
I didn't
but
see
he
that.
just like at a slower speed, cutting moves. Like you're not gonna like lateral movement, elite. Not gonna get close to me, right? But where he struggles is that as we're coming, getting to high speed and then slowing back down, he'll get real leapy and kind of like porpoisey. And that's what got me yesterday. I was, checking and somebody's marking me up, and I was evading stick side pressure and stuff. And I just got off balance when I went down. But like he's able to get me so close to where I need to be that I'll look past, a rougher riding horse, or, I'll look past like a flaw that, he throws his head, or, something like that. Like a lot of people would be like, no, I don't want that. But like, I see it as like, he can get me where I need to go. This is a game, and, like I can be effective on this and throw that out the window. That's not even in my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Athleticism and ability obviously are unspoken. I mean, I didn't mention those, but I think those.
But
are
training
killers.
can go so far. You see, like, I don't have even a good example, but like Braxton's old horse Beamer, like she's obviously super athletic, but like she like all the Hamilton horses, so well trained. Like some of those horses, like maybe like Venus is like one of their horses is like one of the best horses that can play right now, but she was sold to them because nobody else could figure out. She was like crazy and like would throw herself on the ground and like all sorts of, tantrums and stuff. And they were able to train her and get her tuned up enough to where like, now she's like one of the top playing horses available. So like training goes a long way. And that's why I want to get better at that.
Yeah.
And so I can do stuff like that with, maybe figure out, the boundiness or something with my horse or whatever.
Yeah, like the leaping thing you're talking about.
Right.
It sounds like he's trying to stop on his front end. Like
Yes.
stop with his front
Yes.
more.
Yeah, I have videos, and he
Yeah.
like literally, like he's super soft, like as soon as I ask him to stop, he's going to stop, but then he'll like shut it down a little bit and then lunge and just, it's almost like a buck or like a, like a bronco when they're really trying to plant you or something.
Yeah, he's heavy on his front
How
end.
much, like how much do you work on maneuvers and both you guys, like outside of playing the game? just flat work, like in an arena
Right.
or on a field, and
Right.
just practicing things like stops or like lateral movements,
Right.
hind, front quarters, different things like that. How much do you spend like focused on particular movements outside of the game?
Right. Like and it's different for everybody. Everybody has their own, recipe or whatever. I tend to do I don't have great facilities where I'm at. A good property. I just don't have like, a nice arena or anything. I have like a little round pen, a makeshift, panel round pen and stuff. And so like once I get kind of the feeling I want in a round pen or something, then I'll go out into like a, open field where they don't have that confined, like every horse feels phenomenal in the round pen, once you get them doing what you want. But like out in the open, like it'll be in a game time situation. Like that's when it gets harder and stuff.
Do you have kind of like I guess a checklist almost with a horse, like before you would take a horse and play in a game, some things you'd want to see them be able to do where you'd think, okay, I'm going to go play?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, mostly it's like I can get on a horse and be like, I could not play this horse, or I get on a horse and be like, this horse could play, today, or like this horse could play with a little bit of work or whatever. Like if I get this horse fit, he could play, or whatever. But yeah, like most of it, it's pretty standard. Like what you want in polocrosse, you want like a pretty good speed. Good check is probably the best thing because it's the safest thing. You don't want something with no brakes. You want a good controllable stop, or at least rating down of the horse or whatever, and then left turn, right turn. But beyond that,
Yeah,
because the more they play the game, the more they're going to get into those like situations where you're evading somebody or driving past somebody, and they're going to learn a lot just by getting the neck pat after winning that run, or something like that, or like that big turn that they make in the corner or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So kind of like you said, you're looking for them to figure out the job.
Right.
Yeah, because coming from like where I come from and what I do with horses, that would be at the top end of probably danger or a lot of moving pieces, is like ranch roping.
Right.
And so there's a certain point a horse needs to experience something new.
Right.
But then there's a certain point where if the horse doesn't have a couple things down to pat,
Right.
there's kind of an
be
element of diminishing returns where
Right.
you're not going to be able to work on it under
exactly.
pressure. So you check out a couple things and then you go, okay, now I can do the job. And if something goes sideways, I might still not get the job done. Or if you were competing, I might not score, whatever, but at least you won't get in trouble.
Right. Exactly.
Where there's a certain horse where you might find some ways to give him some exposure, but you're just not going to put him under the pressure of the job until there's a couple things that are down to pat 100%.
Right.
So you don't hit that point where you're in there trying to give him experience, but he's over his head.
And that's what everyone's kind of like thing is like, they don't want to blow him up, like don't want to give him too much too soon, like you don't want to be drinking from a fire hose or whatever, like too much too soon is not good for him,
Yeah. What about you, Rahul? You I can tell you want to talk. So
Oh no.
No.
I don't like talking and listening.
You start your colts, right? So
so
like when they don't know,
person, I'm very, very particular about my horses.
But when they don't know, so I just mean it's like a different situation, because if you have a polo horse, it's already kind of going.
Yeah, it's going exactly. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like I've never started a horse ever, and so like all mine is based on feel and whatnot. And like I know Raul's got. He started stuff, and like I've seen his finished product, anything, and it's sweet.
You have to have more structure.
Yeah, you've got to start, at the very basics. And we try not to rush ours. Some of them have been rushed just because of our situation with a test match coming up, and you've got to have 4 horses to put in the pool, and so you might rush 1 or 2 that you otherwise might not have. But we're very particular about how ours go, and not to sound cocky, but I'd like to think we have pretty good horses for the most part. Probably helps me that I've got a wife that's extra adamant about correctness and comes from a pony club background.
And I'll say, like, Sarah is a lovely rider. She's
very correct riding, for sure. And that's helped me. I don't know that I have a particular checklist, so to say, but they have to be able to do the basic moves without any resistance and without any stiffness. I mean, you've got to have a soft horse. I've worked with a ton of trainers from around the world through polocrosse and even outside of polocrosse. And then there's a guy I've told you about this, Scott Keogh from Australia, great mate of ours. Shout out SK. If you're listening to this, and he dumbed things down to such a simple way of breaking your horse down. And what we loved about that is that it translates into not only polocrosse but sport horses really, really well. And so we have kind of transitioned our training with starting a baby. That horse you're talking about was a 2-year-old that wasn't even broke. Yeah. And that's all that kind of a process of his method of bringing a horse in. And of course, we've incorporated bits and pieces that we've learned from other trainers here and there. But a soft horse is a good horse, as you guys know, in any sport. You've got to have them soft and willing, no resistance in any of their body parts. And I won't start teaching one to spin or roll back or have a really good check until I've got them soft in all of their body parts at a walk, trot, lope, gallop. If I can't flex a horse at a gallop both directions, why am I going to try to do a rollback at a flat out gallop, ask for a check and roll back by itself? And then also when you've got a pressured situation with a defender on you, who's probably on a better horse than you are, right? So, they need to be able to do all those things at every gate with minimal resistance. And then from there, you slowly progress and then, bring them into traffic. And yeah, it's kind of, I mean, every horse is a little different, as you guys know.
Yeah.
Some
Can you talk, because Ben and we were talking about that this morning. How do you introduce the bumping and the traffic to one? Because we were just kind of toying around with how
we have some top secret ideas that I'd hate to say it on here because it'd be
give it away.
People have to pay for that.
We can tell you when we shut this off.
Right. But no, because it's there's a lot of things Ben and I need to teach a horse to do, but to at a lope, go and make contact with another horse, we're not asking to do that on a daily basis.
But again, even with that, for us, we start at a walk. And for actually a lot of you was talking about, is there anything you do daily outside of so for us, because again, time is our biggest limitation. For us, getting 6 horses fit to play at the level we play, we have to pony them every day. The only days we ride them individually on if one of us is off from work. So we'll ride one, pony 5 or 4. Even when we're ponying them, we're still working on lateral movement. Pick them in your pile, pick a stick, move them to the left of that stick. You're working on all that stuff every day. So I'd like to think ponying them at a young age gets them used to horses running. Yeah, not necessarily bumping and stuff, but at least horses around them. Mm-hmm. And then once we start riding, the young one that I did, or just recently broke in, we'll ride with one other person, circles in opposite directions, coming towards each other head on, and then going together, weaving in and out. Obviously, you cannot have a horse that kicks, right? I mean, it's not safe, and your horse can get ejected from the sport. The last thing you need is to spend the money on a horse and then it get removed from or ejected from the sport, and now you're stuck selling a horse. So, weaving in and out of traffic with one horse, and then introducing them to 2 horses, and then slowly bringing them into a practice situation where we try to set them up for success at a young age. So I may go to a practice on a young horse and say, hey, Mike, the next 3 practices, I'm not working on bettering myself at whatever, shooting goals or making pickups at pace. I'm making sure this horse has a win. So if I have the ball, I've got to make sure I do what I need to do to create a positive experience for that horse. So don't run it into traffic if it's struggling. Run it away from traffic and let it get the shoulder, and then ask for a push around. Don't ask for a push around if you've already lost a shoulder and you're going to lose that battle. You're just not getting your horse any confidence. And then if it has a bad experience one time, the next weekend it's going to remember that, and things are just going to go downhill.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, I mean, that's how we typically start them. We've actually found my young mare, it sounds crazy, but when I went to Australia in 2010, I think it was, one of the guys, the main person I stayed with, Jeremy Marriott, he had told me they use the goggles with the mesh goggles, and they found that with some young horses, it kind of and it made sense to me when he said it. It kind of darkens things down. Everything's not as bright, not as quick for a young horse to take in. And this young mare of mine, she was always afraid of, not necessarily afraid, but she would shy in traffic. You'd have the ball, and another person would come up and she'd shy away from you. And obviously, you can't have that. So we threw goggles on her just to try it, and she was a different horse. And we played her in goggles for almost a year, just getting her that exposure, and then we take them off for it. We play her in them for like a one chuck out of practice, take them off for the next one, and then slowly we wean her off of it, and now she's playing, doesn't have the shine problem anymore. So
That's
just little
interesting.
tiny things like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. We didn't come up with goggles, but
No, we didn't. Well, I will talk about it then.
Pacifiers, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Pacifiers, goggles. I don't know what people call them.
oh
Yeah.
I don't-
Same thing.
Yeah,
Because what Joe and I were talking about though was we were riding around a little bit before the
game.
is it a hucka?
Chukka.
Chukka.
Yeah.
Come on.
Told you he's brand new.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Brand new.
I love it.
And Chukka. Yeah. So I was like, isn't that a kind of boots or
Talking about the
something?
New Zealand. I mean, we are going to New Zealand. We might need to learn the haka.
Yeah, the haka, yeah.
Might have to.
Yeah.
And so he said, hey, my mare, she, struggles with confidence sometimes. So let me come over there and I'll push your gelding a little bit. I was like, okay. And then as he started to push into my gelding, I thought, well, I'll just leg yield him over as if she is pushing him. That way, like he doesn't think he's blowing through my
Getting
legs.
bullied,
He's
yeah.
going with me.
Right.
And then I was like, hey, Joe, that's what I did. Now let me leg yield into you and you leg yield over and we'll touch. But that way you're taking your mare over there. And my thought behind that, and you guys tell me what you think, but that way your horse, it
Is
doesn't,
learning, yeah.
yeah, it never thinks that it loses.
It's
Right.
losing, exactly.
So it's
Both
just going
I
with
love
you.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
There you go. See,
making a winner out of
you
them.
learn. I tell people all the time,
But-
you never know what you're going to learn. And I've never heard that before.
but we were doing that,
Yeah,
and then it just
that's how
made
we
sense,
figured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially with
Makes
those
sense.
younger horses. And then that way too, it was cool on the field because I think I did do a bunch of stuff. It's fast, it's still a little fast to me. Finally, that last Chukka, I told Joe, I said, hey, that was a little slower. Now, if we could play another, for another hour,
slow
maybe
down.
we'd start
Yeah,
winning
everything.
some stuff.
For sure.
But it finally slowed down a little bit.
Yep.
And then, but before it slowed down, and even when it slowed down, I was still probably jerking my horse around and looked stupid. But the umpire had a comment, and it was a she. Yeah, she
Yeah.
said, you should bend your horse's head away a little bit
Right.
as you're pushing on another horse.
Right.
And that makes sense. That would be a proper
Get the
leg yield,
shoulder.
right?
Right.
So if you've been practicing that,
Right.
because we study outside of this, it is the classical horsemanship maneuvers. So it's neat to see everything
How
is a
they
good
apply,
application.
right.
I know there's a guy,
100%.
you guys have probably heard of Buck Brannaman.
For sure.
And he says that if you make a real bridle horse, what he would consider a finished horse, you ought to be able to go play polo, go jump, go rope, go do all these
It's all
things
the same maneuvers.
and
yeah,
get in
absolutely.
there
Just a
and
different
do them
sport.
in one hand. And It's
Right.
difficult. Certainly wasn't riding in one hand this morning, but
Right.
Um,
Some people would say that's good. What position do you play? Two work?
Yeah,
Yeah. Some people would tell you that's exactly what you should do.
Oh, dude,
You'll
like
hear
I
it on the
said-
sideline all the
Oh,
time.
two
Like,
hands?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even people, will yell at, me and Rahul, like if, we play three a lot. So like riding in the area when you're marking somebody up, you'll hear people
Two
hollering on
hands,
the
two
side,
hands.
2 hands, 2 hands. Like, cause you can maneuver your horse better with 2 hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we like the ball. So we get caught up in swinging at each other.
well, we do that with roping too.
Dumb-
That's kind
we
of the
just
deal
dumb
behind the rope
Silly
reins.
threes.
Right.
It's so that you can have that coil. And even when you're roping as a
Yeah.
cowboy, you'll be sliding it. But there's times where you got to put your coils together and whatever it takes to try to keep him as centered in that
Oh, yeah.
rectangle under you as possible.
Right.
And you just learn to be safe with your hands.
Yeah, I've thrown many a loop where like 5 seconds before I had
Yeah.
both hands on both reins, and then I was like, all right, now I'm positioned. I'm gonna rope this thing.
Right.
Yeah. And there's been times where I've had something dallied and then you've got it dallied and then you're holding your 2 reins again
Yeah.
Right.
because they're young
Sure.
enough. You're trying to say, hey, stay in there.
You're almost
And you're
there.
trying to
Yeah.
slide rope and you're thinking about not pulling on their mouth and keeping that rope tight at the same
Right.
time,
Yeah.
all to the same hand. So
Yeah.
it's there's a lot of kind of cool similarities
For sure.
Oh yeah.
in terms of having that horse be with you in your rectangle and not giving into outside influences in the same way we would work a
Yeah.
cow or something.
I mean, I tell people polocrosse is an easy sport to play, but man, if you've got a good horse under you, it's not only is it so much easier, but god damn, it's fun. Like if you've got a horse that you're not fighting for anything and you point it one way and it goes, or it knows what its job is. I mean, Houston can attest to that. There's nothing better than playing a horse that knows what it's doing and is well trained.
And like I was talking to Gary about it that exactly earlier, is like, especially for like young players like you guys, like y'all are riding horses that have not played polocrosse or that you have just started into polocrosse, and you're trying to figure out all your horse training stuff and like, trying to apply that to the game and everything. But like, if you were to go hop on like Raul's horse special or something, you would be like, this is the most fun game in the world, like hands down.
Yeah,
you would do, a right turn, left turn, or like a little check, and you'd be like, I did not know that they could do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
question. Any horse that's good.
Any horse.
You're like, how did it even do that?
Yeah,
how did it get out?
They surprise you. Every single game. I'm like, my horse will do something. I'm like, oh, no one can do that. No other horse can do that.
Triple teamed, and they've got the sideline on one side and two players on the other, and a player behind them, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, like there's no training that I did that taught them that.
This player, what I mean? They're gonna get the ball taken off them, and somehow, one way or the other, that horse gets them out of it, and before you blink, the ball's through the post, and you're like, shit. How did that horse get him out of that?
Yeah.
And it just goes to show.
That's
horses
awesome.
that love the game, they know the job and they do it well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So for you, Houston, growing up in Texas, and it sounds like you came from a riding family,
Mm-hmm.
were you riding horses, doing other stuff before you got into polocrosse?
Polocrosse was like the first thing I did on a horse. And then that play day was like the first time I had me and my sister had these two horses. They were grullios, I think is what they're called, like that grayish kind of with like the line down their back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, like almost like a bluish color horse. Mm-hmm. And we had two of them, Cinco and Nickel. And Nickel was like super pokey. And that was the first one I played on. And my sister was on Cinco, and he was like I think he was younger, a little hotter. And that was my first experience playing polocrosse. And so like I was, I couldn't tack out my horse at the time. And so Dad's tacking up my horse for me and grabs the wrong horse and puts like, my bridle on it and everything, takes off with me. First tournament ever. I mean, I have I'm doing like basically the walk trot stuff that y'all saw today, the chuckles.
Yeah.
And horse just takes off on me. And I don't know, that was kind of how I got introduced to going fast. Was like the horse just like taking off on me first tournament. But then I did like we've done a lot of cow horse stuff. Like I did team pinning as a kid. Not a whole bunch of it, but a pretty good bit. Maybe 10 rodeos or something a year. And then we got my mom got heavily into like ranch sorting, if y'all know what that is.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, it's like the figure eight, like 2 round pins with like the opening in the middle, and you sort 0 through 10 through as quick as you can, whatever. And that's probably the most fun thing I've done outside of polo, like something that I like the most outside of polocrosse horse wise. But yeah, like I've like polocrosse player, like that's like as far as my horse background has gone, really, is like the ranch sorting stuff. So like I did some play days too. But.
If like the sport went away tomorrow and there was no sports even, would you just ride horses for fun? And
I mean, yeah, I probably would, but I wouldn't have as much fun. But yeah, I mean, like yeah, this game, I mean, it's so crazy, dude. Like, it's just so much fun. Like that, like I always tell people, it's almost like an emotion. The game, like you're almost expressing yourself. Like it sounds cliche, and it's like painting a picture or whatever. You know what I mean? But like that's really like how I've felt about the game. Like since I was young and started to become a better player. Is like, I used to play kind of more on that like testosterone and like the fire and everything. And now like the games, I'm getting older, and now the games is like slowed down for me, and I'm trying to play more smooth and convert all my goals and possessions and everything. And so I don't know, it's just a crazy game, dude.
Not just ram your head against the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, harder than anyone else.
Like 18-year-old, just like I'm gonna go as fast as I can that way.
Well, that like this morning, Joe's like, well, the way to really win at this is you just need to be more of an asshole out there.
Right.
You just need to look at those people.
Right.
And just be like, I'm gonna knock that ball out of your racket, or I'm gonna push you out of bounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm not naturally like a rude person.
Right.
And I was telling him this morning, like we lined up next to a bunch of nice girls. I was like, shoot, like why didn't we get
Feel
to
bad. Yeah.
have a bunch of like biffs lined up beside us with real punchable faces, you know, where you're like, I just like that's the first time I've ran someone off the field. But I tell you what, I think they were making comments about me almost T-boning people a little too much by the end of it. Because at the beginning, I was like, I don't know, how do you run someone off the field?
Yeah, you're like,
Like,
how do I
we
do that?
messed around a little bit in the field, like at a trot,
Right.
but like at a dead run. And then one time I did it, and then the next time I was like, oh, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And then I think I got a little too aggressive.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
It's all in good.
But then I
good
realized you
spirits.
can miss the guy too. So just like a cow,
Right.
you're pushing, you think you got it, and then the cow's like, I'm gonna
Yep.
go around the backside of you,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
That's
There
it's all
was
Hail
one
Mary.
played it because I was one. I like got it out of lineup and like turned around and the three's coming this way and I just see Ben come from the other side and just like push her like half the field over.
Like,
Yes, just like laying into this gal.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, and again, it wasn't all perfect, but you definitely figured that job out.
Well, I told him, I said, what if you could have like King Arthur and a couple of the knights, you know, from the round table show up for the afternoon?
Right.
You'd have to tone them boys down, but I bet they could run somebody out of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. They would
Or
just,
like the Vikings.
Yeah,
no kidding.
absolutely.
Oh,
But no, it's a lot of fun, but we better wrap this up in case we are going to play this afternoon.
yeah.
Yeah.
Better do that. Hey,
So-
thanks guys for coming on. This has been real fun.
Of course. Yeah.
Oh, gosh,
Welcome.
it's been
thanks for having
Much
us.
fun.
Yeah. Glad to meet you guys.
We could
Hopefully,
have,
we provided some decent content for you.
yeah.
Excellent.
It's great, man. And I
Excellent.
mean, we could talk like this all afternoon.
This is like the one thing I could talk about for
Yeah.
days.
Exactly.
I told you I
Hours,
hated
days.
hated doing podcasts and stuff like that, but I can talk polocrosse all day long, and
Yeah.
there's so much more to talk about. And
Well, you're not the
training
first
and-
person. You know, Raul was like, well, like, can you send me some notes? What are we going to
Right.
talk about? And it's just like, dude, I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, we don't plan. You know, we just
Yeah.
you can talk
we kinda
polocrosse all day. There's so
shoot
much
from
to
the hip.
talk about.
yeah,
Yeah. No, we just want to hang
We'll
out with
talk
people
again.
and
yeah.
have
Yeah.
fun.
No,
Once you played
it's
like
awesome.
I don't know 3, 4, 5 tournaments, then you're going to start asking like more advanced strategy, and then we'll have another session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah. And then let us know when we've got to put it on mute for a minute so we
Yeah,
don't give
not
away
giving
state
secrets.
secrets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna shock the world next 24. So
Heck yeah.
Yes, sir.
Heck yeah. Yeah. So, and if anyone's like looking to get into polocrosse, like what's the fastest, easiest route to go find a game near you?
Check out American Polocrosse Association, Google, Facebook. There's a list of clubs on there. Whatever state you're in, there's get in touch with the closest club to you, and there's probably a tournament at some point. And then from there, it's all word of mouth, kind of like Joe got into it. I mean, I went up to Virginia to do a clinic. I'd never even met him for a pony club, and he was all gung ho from the get go. And then we exchanged phone numbers and been buddies ever since. And here he is. What'd you say? 4
This
tournaments?
is my
later?
4th one
Yep.
this year.
There you go.
Not bad for like your
I
inaugural.
mean,
year.
yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
caught the bug.
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
When you ride horses for a living, it's nice to have something where, like, obviously you guys take this very serious, but this is like a fun thing to do,
Right. Oh
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm like going, and it's not like, well, now can you help me like like Fluffy's pulling back and
Right.
all this other stuff you deal with where like you're kind of dealing with clients, and like I like doing that. It's very
Right.
rewarding. But this is something I can come. No one's asking me for, like, I'm asking you guys for
Right,
advice.
exactly,
It's the
exactly.
opposite. And I can just have fun with my horse, do a job, meet some great people.
Something fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, something new,
Yeah,
different
so-
than your regular routine.
Yeah. So for me, it's just like to kind of keep my love of horses alive. I mean, it's the same reason I go down and hang out with Ben and we go and like work cattle and stuff like that. It's just like fun to have a job instead of, just doing 30, 60 days on new horses
Right.
every month or whatever. And that's your
Sure.
only relationship with horses.
Right.
Yeah. Stay out of the ruts.
Absolutely.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
thanks a lot,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.